So my name is Cormac from Duke University, and we've been working on integrating, basically making a interface between OPTIMADE and the AFLOW APIs. So just a little introduction to the AFLOW database, a recap, very quick recap. So it's available at aflow.org. It's calculations of different basic computational materials database. We now have over 3.2 million entries. We have online, you can go in, you can do an advanced search. We have our own search API already that we're interfacing, making basically a translation to OPTIMADE, so an interface with OPTIMADE for it. We also have various online applications available at aflow.org. So the machine learning application, there's Crystal Prototype Library. There's the online AFLOW Online, so you can use the actual AFLOW code through an online interface. And then we have this convex hull application, so you can do materials thermodynamics stability analysis. Okay, so then first I'll just talk briefly about the architecture we're setting up to make an interface between OPTIMADE and our own API. So we've set up now a server for OPTIMADE an OPTIMADE endpoint on the AFLOW server at this address. We then have this generator where we basically take in an OPTIMADE query, we turn it into an AFLOW query into our own API. We then query our database, we take our response, and then we will translate that back into the OPTIMADE JSON response. And this is pretty much working now for version 1.0 in the specification. I'll talk a bit more on the next slide a bit later about what's not working. But what things that are working, so all these new filter operators, so and, or, not, equals, less than, greater than, is known, is not, is unknown, etc. These are all working as far as we can tell. So far, we've basically just implemented, we haven't called it the structures endpoint. We're a bit unsure about some of the details on this. But what we do is we return the data. So far, data we return, we always just follow the structures format as specified in section 7.2 of the specification. And here's some example queries that are working. So this is the standard query that's mentioned in the paper where you're just looking for a sodium chloride. And here's a more complex query that we've used as one of our tests. So this is basically looking for silicon carbide or silicon nitride with a band gap greater than 2 electron volts. And here we're looking for our case, one of our bulk modulus calculations. So this value is known. And then we have paging. So page number is 1 and the page limit is 40. So that's some examples that are working, of queries that are currently working. Here's the example of the response. So you can see things like, you have things like the amount of data returned, the data available, if there's more data available or not, and then things like the chemical formula, etc. So then the things that aren't, so that's what's working. Now what's not working, so for example, currently we can't yet filter by chemical formula keywords. Well, it's sort of working, but it's somewhat limited. We need to do some more work on the back end, especially we need to incorporate a reduced chemical formula into the actual database to make it much easier to query by this. Then, as I mentioned before, we only have a single endpoint at the moment. We haven't implemented these different types of structures or calculations endpoints. We're also not sure conceptually how much sense it makes to have all these different endpoints, because to us, all of these things are basically just, well, maybe with the exception of something like info, but calculations and like a structure to us is just a property of a calculation. So we're not really sure how much sense all these different endpoints make. And it just makes it a lot more complicated. There's also, so the only paging we've implemented at the moment is page limit and page number. Things like offset and these sort of things require a lot of work on our back end. So we haven't really tried to do this at all yet. Sorting, we haven't implemented that yet, but it should be fairly straightforward, but we just need to do some work to get it working. And oh yeah, for now, so I gave an example, for example, of the bulk modulus keyword search. So this was the _AFLOW. So right now it works for the AFLOW keywords, and if it sees something else like a NP or OQMD or whatever, it will just simply ignore that keyword search. So it just basically strips that out and only searches for the ones that are in AFLOW. This is not quite what's required in the specification, but doing what's actually required in the specification will require a bit more work, maybe on our back ends. So that's more or less our current status.